Have you ever felt like your life is a pot of boiling water, things bubbling, steaming, pressure building, but there's no sign of anything good cooking? Or maybe you've been fighting battles you never signed up for, praying prayers that seem to vanish in the ceiling, smiling while sinking. And yet, deep in your spirit, there's a little whisper, like a still, small voice that says, "Hold on. Something's coming. Let me tell you something, my friend." That whisper isn't just a feeling. It's a sign. A spiritual sign that heaven is cooking something for you, and trust me, God is not serving snacks. He's preparing a banquet. Now listen. God doesn't always send you a WhatsApp text saying, "Hey, blessing arriving Tuesday at 10 a.m. Nope. He speaks in patterns, signals, and spiritual signs. And today, we are diving into 10 of the most powerful signs that a big blessing is about to hit your life. We'll bring receipts from Scripture. We'll laugh. We might cry. But most importantly, we'll walk away wiser, stronger, and more prepared. So buckle up. Let's begin with sign number 1, and this one right here. It's the most overlooked, misunderstood, and misdiagnosed of them all. Sign 1, when all hell breaks loose, heaven might be close. Let's be honest. We all want blessings to come wrapped in ribbons, not wrapped in battles. But here's the mystery of the spiritual realm. The fiercest storms often show up right before your biggest breakthrough. Ever notice that? You're praying harder. You're fasting more. You're avoiding sin like it's on fire. You're even being nice to people you secretly want to karate chop. And what happens? Boom. Life slaps you hard. Your car breaks down. Your boss suddenly turns into Pharaoh. The money dries up. The friends disappear. Even your dog starts giving you attitude. Sounds familiar? The biblical receipt, Daniel's 21-day delay. Let me take you back to Daniel. The man was fasting, praying, seeking God with everything in him. No Netflix. No snacks. No distractions. And yet, nothing happened. Day 1. Silence. Day 7. Crickets. Day 20. Still waiting. Until finally, on day the 21st, an angel shows up panting like he just ran a marathon. Daniel, from the first day you set your heart to gain understanding, your prayer was heard. But the prince of Persia resisted me for 21 days until Michael came to help me. Daniel 10 verses 12 to 13. Wait, what? So God answered on day 1, but the blessing got stuck in spiritual traffic. Exactly. Daniel's delay wasn't a denial. It was a spiritual battle in the heavenly realms. Your blessing might be under warfare too. But here's the good news: if hell is fighting you this hard, it's because heaven has already released something with your name on it. I know a lady, let's call her Mary. She had just lost her job. Bills were stacking. She was praying and fasting but feeling abandoned. Then, just 3 days before her eviction notice, she got a phone call. "Mary, we saw your resume from 2 years ago. Are you still available?" That phone call changed her life. But the hell she went through right before that. She almost gave up. The spiritual realm heats up right before a breakthrough. So the next time your life feels like a battlefield, stop and say, "Wait a minute. Maybe I'm not under attack because I'm cursed. Maybe I'm under attack because I'm carrying something valuable." Diamonds are always under pressure before they shine, and so are you. Sign 2, when you start feeling peace in the middle of chaos. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked around at your life, broken bank account, broken relationships, broken dreams, and thought, "I should be losing my mind right now. But for some strange reason, I'm not"? Welcome to one of the most powerful spiritual signs that something big is about to happen. Unexplainable, irrational peace. You're not at the beach. You're not sipping a smoothie. You haven't even solved the problem. But inside, you're not panicking. You're not crying. You're not freaking out. You've got peace like a weapon. Paul says it best in Philippians 4 verse 7. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Not the peace of money. Not the peace of problem solving. Not even the peace of people. The peace of God. And guess what? That peace has a job. It's a security guard. It stands at the door of your heart and says, anxiety, you're not on the list. Panic, take a seat outside. Worry, no entry today. So when everyone's expecting you to collapse, but you're still standing, like a spiritual bouncer saying, not today, Satan. That's not just strength. That's a sign. Picture this. Jesus and his disciples are on a boat. A crazy storm hits. The boat is tossing. The disciples are crying. Buckets flying. Water splashing. And where's Jesus? Snoring in the back. On a cushion. Not praying. Not panicking. Sleeping. That's not laziness. That's divine peace. And guess what? The storm didn't wake him. But the disciples' fear did. When he got up, he didn't say, oh no. A storm. He said, peace. Be still. And even the wind obeyed. Jesus had peace in the storm because he was the blessing in the boat. There's a guy I know, we'll call him Ben. He was laid off. The company folded. His wife was expecting. He had no savings. But he told me, I don't know why I wasn't afraid. I just had this weird peace. 3 weeks later, he got offered a position 3 ranks higher than his previous job, plus benefits. A house allowance and a car. Ben's peace wasn't because of what he saw. It was because of what heaven was planning. If you've got every reason to be stressed, but you feel a calm that doesn't make sense, that's not delusion. That's divine confirmation. Because sometimes God calms the storm around you. But most times, he calms the storm inside you first. That's the kind of peace that prepares you for elevation. Sign 3, when everything feels dry, but you can smell rain. You know that feeling. When life feels like the Sahara Desert, no progress, no passion, no provision. You pray, but your words feel like they are bouncing off brass ceilings. You give, but nothing comes back. You serve, but no one sees. You're spiritually dry. Emotionally dry. Financially dry. You're even starting to wonder if God took a vacation and forgot to set his out-of-office email. But then, in the middle of the dryness, you catch something. A small feeling. A subtle scent. Hope. You can't see the cloud, but you can smell the rain. And my friend, that's a sign. A spiritual pregnancy. A prophetic stirring. Let me take you to Mount Carmel. Elijah had just called down fire from heaven. Victory, right? But now, there's a drought in the land. 3.5 years of no rain. The ground is cracked. The rivers are bones. But Elijah tells King Ahab, go, eat and drink, for there is the sound of an abundance of rain. 1 Kings 18 verse 41. Pause. Sound of what? Ain't no clouds. Ain't no thunder. Ain't no raindrops. But Elijah heard it in the spirit. He told his servant, go check. The servant came back, nothing. Elijah said, go again. And again. And again. 7 times. And on the 7th trip, the servant comes back squinting and says, well, there's a tiny cloud. Like the size of a man's hand. Elijah said, that's it. Let's go. It's about to pour. Here's the deal. Sometimes the blessing shows up as a whisper, not a billboard. As a tiny cloud, not a thunderstorm. But if you've been in a dry season and suddenly, out of nowhere, you get a random surge of expectation. A dream that revives your hope. A tiny opportunity that seems too small to matter. Don't ignore it. Tiny clouds birth torrential rains. Let me tell you about Sam. He had been singing for years. No fans. No followers. Just him, a guitar, and rejection. Then one day, a tiny event organizer called him. Hey, can you perform at this community event? He almost didn't go, it wasn't even paid. But he went. Someone in the crowd posted a 15-second video clip online. That video went viral. A music label called him the next morning. The tiny cloud became a storm of blessings. If you're in a dry season, but you feel a shift in your soul, a nudge in your spirit, a smell of rain in the wind, that's not wishful thinking. That's God letting you smell your future before you see it. So don't despise the dry season. It's where thirst awakens faith. And don't dismiss the small cloud. It might be your confirmation. Because if God promised rain, even the drought has an expiration date. Sign 4, when God starts cutting people and things out of your life without warning. Have you ever looked around and thought, wait, where did everybody go? Suddenly, the friends you once laughed with, gone. The job you loved, snatched. The door you were knocking on for years, slammed. Even the habits and hobbies you used to enjoy, no longer exciting. You didn't fall out with people. You didn't quit your job. You didn't even change your circle. But it's like God walked in with divine scissors and started snipping connections, comfort zones, conversations, and even your cravings. Why? Because you're about to be blessed. And you can't carry dead weight into your next chapter. Biblical receipt. Jesus says it plainly. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. John 15 verse 2. Did you catch that? God doesn't just cut off the bad branches. He even trims the fruitful ones. Why? Because he's not punishing you, he's preparing you. And sometimes, the preparation feels like punishment because we don't see what he's trying to make room for. Let's talk about Gideon. God calls him to go fight the Midianites. Gideon's army has 32,000 men. Not bad. But God looks at his army and says, too many. Gideon's like, excuse me. God says, if I let you win with that many people, you'll think you did it. We need to shrink this thing. So he tells Gideon, tell everyone who's afraid to go home. 22,000 leave. Just like that. Now it's 10,000. God says, still too many. He sends them to drink water. Long story short, only 300 men remain. From 32,000 to 300. And guess what? Those 300 defeated an army so big it was described as like a swarm of locusts. Sometimes God will reduce your crowd so that when the blessing comes, you know it was all him. There's a woman I met, let's call her Rachel. For years, she had a group of friends she called her ride or die. They supported her when she was broke. They cheered her on. Or so she thought. But when she started pursuing a deeper spiritual life and chasing her calling, one by one, they started fading. Some ghosted her. Some betrayed her. Some just stopped showing up. She felt abandoned. She cried. But a few months later, she was invited to speak at a major women's conference. That one event opened doors across the country. New friends, new platforms, new partnerships, all aligned with her purpose. She later said, if I had stayed in that old circle, I would have never grown. God cut them off. Because I couldn't take confusion into my calling. When God starts doing some heavenly house cleaning in your life, don't panic. He removes people before they poison the promise. He shuts doors before you get trapped behind them. He cancels plans that would have crushed you later. It might hurt now, but it's divine surgery. And God doesn't amputate without a reason, he's making space for blessing. So when people leave, say, Lord, I bless them. And I trust you. Because pruning is proof that something is about to bloom. Sign 5, when you are misunderstood or rejected right before elevation. Have you ever felt the sting of being left out? You didn't get the promotion. You were the most talented, but they picked someone else. You tried to explain yourself, but they misunderstood your intentions. You brought your light to the table and they called it too much. And suddenly you start questioning. God, why am I always the one left behind? Why do they reject me when all I want is to help? Why are people walking away when I've done nothing wrong? Pause. Breathe. This might not be a punishment. It could be preparation. Because sometimes God hides you before He promotes you. And He allows rejection to redirect you. Let's rewind to David. The prophet Samuel is sent to anoint the next king of Israel. He visits Jesse's house and says, "Bring out your sons." Jesse lines them up like an army. Tall, handsome, qualified. Samuel looks at Eliab, the firstborn, and thinks, surely this is the Lord's anointed. But God says, man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16 verse 7. They go down the line, 7 sons. Still no king. So Samuel asks Jesse, is this all your sons? Jesse goes, oh yeah. There's the youngest one. He's out watching sheep. They didn't even bother to call David. Rejected. Forgotten. Overlooked. But guess what? God waited. He wouldn't let the ceremony continue without the chosen one in the room. When David finally walks in, God tells Samuel, arise, anoint him. For this is he. Don't miss this. The one they left out was the one God called out. Even Jesus, the Son of God, was rejected. He returned to his hometown to teach. And you'd think they'd celebrate, right? Nope. They said, isn't this the carpenter? Mary's boy. We know his sisters. They couldn't see his divinity because they were stuck on his humanity. And the Bible says, he could not do many mighty works there because of their unbelief. Mark 6 verse 5. Let me tell you something. Some environments cannot handle who you're becoming. And God will allow rejection in places that cannot receive your elevation. There's a man named Theo. He worked for a company for 10 years, faithful, punctual, skilled. One Monday morning, he was called into a meeting and told, we are letting you go. You're no longer needed. Devastated. Angry. Embarrassed. He had bills. Kids. Dreams. He cried like a baby on the way home. But hear this. That rejection pushed him to start a small online business he'd been sitting on for 3 years. Fast forward 2 years, he now employs 60 people. Guess who applied for a job last month? His old manager. God said, they may have fired you. But I hired you for something greater. Rejection is not always an attack, it's often direction. God allows misunderstanding and exclusion to protect the purity of your assignment. If you were accepted in the wrong places, you'd get comfortable too soon. You'd blend in when you were meant to stand out. So when you're passed over, looked down on, or pushed aside, don't chase validation. Your crown is not in their hands. Your value is not up for vote. You're not forgotten. You're being preserved. Because when the table is ready, God will call you in, and this time, they'll have to wait for you. Sign 6. When you start having unusual dreams, visions, or sudden discernment you can't explain. You ever wake up in the middle of the night and think, what was that dream? It wasn't just a dream about flying or forgetting your homework. This one was vivid. Strange. Emotional. Even a little scary. And somehow, deep down, you knew. God is trying to tell me something. Or maybe you're out during the day, and you start sensing things about people or situations that you can't explain. Your spirit goes on high alert, even when everything looks normal. You walk into a room and instantly feel, this ain't it. You're not going crazy. You're not overthinking. You're not imagining things. You're becoming spiritually sensitive. And that sensitivity is a sign that God is getting ready to bless you and is preparing your spirit for the next level. Let's visit our dreamer-in-chief, Joseph. At just 17 years old, he starts having wild, symbolic dreams. I saw my brother's sheaves of grain bowing to mine. Then the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed to me. Sounds like the plot of a sci-fi movie. But Joseph wasn't dreaming for fun. God was revealing his destiny. Those dreams were divine previews of the palace he was headed for. His brothers didn't get it. His father doubted it. But Joseph held on because God often whispers your future in dreams before he makes it public. Daniel didn't just have visions, he could interpret other people's dreams. Even the ones that terrified kings. When King Nebuchadnezzar had a troubling dream, nobody could figure it out except Daniel. And when he did, the king promoted him, honored him, and elevated him above all the wise men of Babylon. From dream interpreter to ruler. Here's the point. Spiritual dreams aren't just about warning, they are often the invitation to promotion. There's a lady, let's call her Angela. For 3 nights in a row, she dreamed of cakes, bread, and flour. She'd never baked a day in her life. She worked in finance. But the dreams wouldn't stop. She prayed, fasted, sought wise counsel. She eventually left her job, took a leap of faith, and started a bakery from her tiny kitchen. Today, she owns 3 branches, runs an online baking school, and testifies that it all began with a dream. Moral of the story: God talks in your language. And if you're tuned in, he'll speak in dreams that match your destiny. What about sudden discernment? Ever suddenly know something without anyone telling you? Or feel a check in your spirit that says, don't go there. Call that person now. Say no to this opportunity. That's called discernment, and it's a spiritual antenna God activates when your season is shifting. Before a blessing, God sharpens your senses. Because what's coming requires more than sight, it requires insight. Don't ignore divine dreams. Don't shrug off strange visions. Don't downplay discernment. That inner stirring. That strange sense. That Holy Spirit goosebump moment. That's God whispering, get ready, I'm coming through. So get a journal. Pray for interpretation. Surround yourself with people who understand the spiritual realm. Because when heaven starts sending signals, it means your earthly reality is about to shift. And let me tell you something, family. The spiritual world always announces what's next, before the physical world catches up. Sign 7, when you begin to lose interest in things that once excited you. You ever wake up one day and think, why don't I enjoy this anymore? I used to love this job, this friend group, this place. But now it just feels empty. You scroll through your usual feeds. The jokes feel dry. The updates feel meaningless. You hang out with the same people and you're smiling on the outside, but yawning in your soul. Let me drop this truth bomb gently but firmly. When God is getting ready to shift your season, he will quietly drain your appetite for the old. You won't even realize it at first. But the excitement fades. The thrill dries up. And suddenly, you're starving for more. And that hunger isn't random. It's sacred. Let's go to the prophet Elijah. God sends him to a brook called Cherith during a famine. There, God miraculously feeds him through ravens and gives him fresh water daily. It's peaceful, comfortable, supernatural. But then something strange happens. And it came to pass after a while that the brook dried up. 1 Kings 17 verse 7. Wait, God led him there, right? So why would the water stop? Because the brook was only a temporary blessing, not a permanent destination. And when it dried up, it was heaven's way of saying, it's time to move forward. I've got something bigger for you next. Sometimes the things you once loved start to dry up. Not because you're failing, but because you've outgrown them. Lisa had worked in fashion retail for 15 years. She was the queen of style, the go-to for advice, the manager everyone respected. But slowly, she started waking up with a heavy heart. The spark was gone. The routine felt lifeless. She dreaded Mondays, and that wasn't like her. Instead of panicking, she prayed. And in a quiet time, she heard, the season has shifted. I'm calling you to serve women differently. She stepped out. Started a coaching business helping women heal from body shame and comparison. Now, she's walking in purpose, helping people find beauty beyond clothes. Here's the key. The boredom wasn't the enemy, it was the compass. Signs you're in this transition. Your hobbies feel hollow. Your social circles feel shallow. You crave solitude or deeper conversations. You feel guilty for not being excited about what you used to love. You keep saying, there's got to be more to life than this. That's not depression. That's divine discontent. It's the Spirit whispering, I've got something greater for you. But you can't enter new doors holding onto old keys. When God is about to bless you with next-level purpose, He starts detoxing you from old pleasures. He removes the flavor from things that are no longer feeding your soul. Not to frustrate you, but to free you. Think of it like spiritual puberty. Your taste is changing. Your appetite is shifting. Because your assignment is maturing. So don't resist the boredom. Don't fight the restlessness. Instead, say, Lord, I'm listening. What are you leading me to next? Because if you stay in expired places too long, you'll miss the banquet is preparing up ahead. Sign 8, when God begins to isolate you or strip things away. Have you ever found yourself in a season where it feels like everything and everyone is walking away? Friends don't call anymore. Your phone goes silent. You show up in rooms where you used to shine, and suddenly you feel invisible. Worse still, the things you used to lean on, opportunities, income streams, support systems, start to fall off like dried leaves in autumn. You look up to heaven and ask, God, what's going on? Why am I so alone? But here's the secret nobody told you. God does His greatest work in you when you are isolated from everything that distracts you. Let's talk about Joseph, dreamer, favorite son, chosen one. He had visions of greatness, yes, but what happened next? Thrown into a pit by his own brothers. Sold into slavery. Falsely accused and imprisoned. Forgotten in prison for years. That's not a promotion, that's a disaster. But guess what? All those stripping seasons were God's way of protecting, pruning, and preparing Joseph for the palace. Because sometimes, before God elevates you, He eliminates distractions even if they look like blessings. He had to get Joseph alone so that he could get Joseph ready. Samuel had built a solid business, had a good reputation, and was surrounded by a strong network. But suddenly, contracts dried up. Clients vanished. Investors pulled out. Even his closest friends ghosted him. For 2 years, he wandered in financial wilderness. No applause. No likes. No affirmations. Just silence. But in that silence, he heard God's voice clearer than ever. He rebranded, rethought, rebuilt. And when the dust settled, he launched a business rooted in purpose, not ego. Today, he says, if God hadn't stripped everything from me, I would have stayed dependent on the noise and missed the assignment. What this sign feels like. People slowly pulling away or suddenly turning on you. Doors closing, opportunities drying up. Being misunderstood or misrepresented. Loneliness so thick you can't tell if it's spiritual or emotional. God's silence feels heavier than usual. But listen to this. Every branch that bears fruit He prunes, that it may bear more fruit. John 15 verse 2. God isn't punishing you. He's pruning you. And pruning is painful, but it's necessary for growth. Dangers to avoid in this season. Don't chase back people God removed. Don't fight to reopen doors He shut. Don't interpret silence as absence. Don't confuse isolation with rejection. You're not being abandoned. You're being hidden for preparation. Even Jesus had to go through the wilderness alone before launching His ministry, Matthew 4 verses 1 to 11. Even David was in the fields alone before being called to kingship. Even Moses was in the desert alone before being used to deliver a nation. Isolation is a holy space. A divine strategy. A cocoon before the wings. If God is stripping people, platforms, and places from your life, If it feels like the spotlight moved, the crowd disappeared, and all that's left is you and God, then congratulations. You're in the preparation room for a massive blessing. Let Him cut what needs cutting. Let Him quiet what needs quieting. Because when the blessing comes, you won't just receive it, you'll be ready to carry it. Sign 9. When you suddenly feel bold enough to do what used to terrify you. Let me ask you a personal question. Have you ever surprised yourself by doing something that once paralyzed you with fear? Maybe you used to tremble at public speaking, but now you're hosting webinars like it's nothing. Maybe you avoided conflict like the plague, but now you're speaking your truth with love and clarity. Maybe you once thought, who am I to start this? But now you're halfway through writing a book, launching a business, or mentoring others. Pause right there. That kind of boldness, that kind of supernatural courage that didn't come from motivational YouTube videos or a double espresso. That's a sign. God is awakening something. He's stirring the lion inside you because He's about to release a blessing that requires boldness to carry. Esther was a young Jewish woman hiding in a Persian palace. A queen, yes, but also afraid. Timid. Quiet. Until the moment came to speak up for her people, even though it could cost her life. And what did she say? If I perish, I perish. Whoa. Where did that kind of courage come from? It came from purpose. God didn't just prepare a blessing for Esther, He prepared Esther for the blessing. She had to go from hiding in the palace to boldly walking into the king's court, risking everything. And that act of courage unlocked a national deliverance. There was a man named Greg. He stuttered. He was shy. In high school, he was the kid who got nervous reading out loud. But one day, God told him to preach. Greg laughed out loud. God, you've got jokes. But the call wouldn't go away. His heart burned every time he read the Bible. He kept dreaming of crowds, of messages, of impact. And one day, trembling and sweating, Greg preached for the first time in a small church basement. It was awkward. It was messy. But it was anointed. Fast forward 10 years. Pastor Greg preaches to over 20,000 people across platforms every week. He's bold, funny, passionate, on fire. When asked what changed, he says, "The Holy Spirit turned up the volume on my assignment and turned down the volume of my fear." What this sign looks and feels like. You feel a sudden urge to start something bold, a business, a ministry, a mission. You stop overthinking and start moving. You say things like, I don't even know where this confidence is coming from. You're no longer driven by people's approval. You sense divine backing, even if you're still a little scared. The righteous are bold as a lion. Proverbs 28 verse 1. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1 verse 7. This boldness isn't ego, it's evidence that heaven is backing you. The trap to avoid. Don't confuse boldness with arrogance, humility must lead the charge. Don't wait for everything to be perfect, perfection is the enemy of momentum. Don't suppress the fire, boldness fades when ignored. If the fire is lit, run with it. If the idea won't leave you alone, build it. If the opportunity scares you and excites you, jump in. Because God is saying, I'm preparing to bless you in ways that will require you to stand tall. So I'm giving you the spine before I give you the stage. The blessing that's coming to you won't fit in a timid heart. God is giving you boldness because the next level of your life will require action, courage, and presence. You're about to walk through doors that would have terrified you last year. You're about to own rooms you once felt unworthy to enter. That's not pride. That's prophecy in motion. And if you feel that holy boldness stirring inside, don't dismiss it. Don't tone it down. Don't wait for confirmation from people who were never called. Move. Speak. Build. Go. The lion is waking up. And the kingdom is waiting. Sign 10. When the attacks intensify right before the breakthrough. Let's be real. There are times when life hits you so hard, it feels personal. Not just a bad day. Not just a little setback. We are talking all-out chaos. Money dries up. Relationships break down. Health takes a turn. Opportunities disappear. And worst of all, you start to question if God even sees you anymore. You whisper, "Lord, I've been faithful. I've been praying. I've been trying. So why does it feel like everything is falling apart?" Friend, let me shout it from the rooftop. When all hell breaks loose, heaven is usually about to break through. The warfare you're feeling isn't punishment. It's proof. The enemy attacks hardest when you're closest to the promise. Let's take a sobering walk through the book of Job. A righteous man. A blameless man. A blessed man. And yet, out of nowhere, he loses his livestock. His servants are killed. His children die. His body is covered in boils. His friends accuse him. His wife says, "Curse God and die." Y'all, this is beyond spiritual warfare. This is a full-scale demolition. But why? Because Satan told God, "Let me test him and he'll curse you to your face." But Job held on. He questioned. He mourned. He didn't pretend to be okay. But he did not let go of God. And in the end, the Lord restored Job's fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Job 42 verse 10. Double for his trouble. The pain was real, but so was the promotion. Sandra was a mother of 3. Working a job she hated while chasing her dream of becoming a life coach. She had finally saved up enough money to launch her business. Website, done. Branding, done. Strategy, done. Then boom, her car breaks down. Her kid gets hospitalized. Her landlord raises rent. Her account hits zero. Her faith hits empty. She told God, "This must be a sign I'm not supposed to do this." But that night, something rose up in her spirit. She remembered the promise. So she launched anyway, with zero budget and maximum faith. Today, Sandra runs a thriving coaching brand, speaks on international stages, and employs 6 people. She always says, "The week before my breakthrough was the darkest of my life. But that storm was proof that the devil was terrified of what I was about to birth." What this sign looks and feels like. Spiritual heaviness you can't explain. Attacks coming from multiple directions at once. Dreams filled with confusion or fear. Feeling exhausted even though you've been obedient. Doors slamming shut, people turning cold. The temptation to quit gets loud. This isn't coincidence. This is pressure before promotion. Even Jesus, yes, the Son of God, was not exempt. Before the resurrection came, betrayal by a close friend, Judas. Denial by his best friend, Peter. Abandonment by all his followers. Brutal beating, humiliation, and crucifixion. The devil threw everything he had at Jesus. Why? Because Satan knew if Jesus made it to day 3, it was game over. So the attacks intensified at the cross. But that cross, that pain, that silence, was the gateway to the greatest blessing in history. Don't quit in this season. Don't quit your calling because the devil is loud. Don't give up the promise because the process hurts. Don't interpret resistance as rejection, it's usually confirmation. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. Psalm 34 verse 19. After you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. 1 Peter 5 verse 10. If your life feels like a battleground, then good news. You're closer than ever to the blessing. Hell fights what heaven favors. So if you're under fire, it's not because you're forgotten. It's because you're favored. And favor is dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. So don't retreat. Don't sit down. Don't tap out. Your resurrection is coming. Your testimony is loading. Your crown is being polished. Hold your ground. The blessing is not being delayed, it's being defended. You've just walked through 10 unmistakable signs that God is preparing to blow your mind with a blessing you didn't earn, couldn't force, and won't be able to explain. So what now? Pay attention. Stay aligned. Keep the faith. And prepare yourself. Because when God blesses you, it will silence your enemies. It will heal your soul. And it will make people say, "Surely the Lord has been with them." If this message stirred your spirit, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe for more powerful teachings. Like this video if it gave you clarity. Share it with someone who's waiting on their breakthrough. And tell me in the comments which of these signs are you seeing right now. This is not just a video. It's confirmation. It's prophecy. It's your season. Get ready. Because God is about to make your name echo in places you've never even been. Amen. Let's go.